Today I'm going to teach you what a bond is, what you're buying when you're buying the symbol BND, and how it works exactly because you need to know what you're putting your money into. Well, hello to the third episode of Slav's Money Corner. This is where I teach you how to manage your money like the big wealthy professionals and how to manage your own wealth, especially if it's starting to be a bit sizable. Even if it's not sizable, these are skills that you might find useful. Today I'm going to teach you what a bond is, what you're buying when you're buying the symbol BND, and how it works exactly because you need to know what you're putting your money into, all right? So I've developed some really cool graphics for you guys. I just finished doing them, and I think it's going to put a lot of perspective on what a bond is, how it functions, and what you're actually putting the money to. So here we go. Going into the browser right now. We're starting this presentation. Okay, you'll see why I have a bank up there in a second. So what is a bond? Bond is basically government debt. Now this might seem a little bit, okay, well, everybody knew that. So what does that mean? Like, what does it mean, government debt? Like, explain more. Well, thankfully I will, but before I do that, I'm going to relate it to a different type of debt, because debt is just debt. Whether it's government debt, whether it's personal debt, whether it's a mortgage, okay, it's just it's either secured or unsecured. But you don't have to worry about these terms. Just think debt like when you borrow money from someone and you have to repay them back with interest. Okay, that's what it is. So here we go. What is a bond? Government debt. Now here's how I'm going to explain it to you. Okay, you are this little penguin right here, and you want to buy a house, but you don't got the money. So the house not very big, so it probably costs around $100. So you need $100 from somewhere, and thankfully there's a bank in your neighborhood. So you go to the bank and say, "Bank, I need $100 in order to purchase my mini house." And the bank says, "Okay, but I'm not just gonna give you $100 like this. If you're gonna tie up my $100 for years, I want to know that I'm gonna get something out of this deal." So they propose that you give them $110 a few years later, okay, maybe 10 years later. So you say, "Okay, fine, I want the house now, not 10 years from now. The value of the house might be up by then. I want to buy the house now." Okay, so you say, "Give me the $100. I'll give you 110 over the course of 10 years in little tiny increments at a time." That is exactly what mortgage is. Okay, so the bank says, "Okay, we have a deal. So here's how we've done this. You, or we," okay, let's say we're buying together. I can be the penguin, you can be the penguin. We can role play. All right, so you're buying the house for $100. You just took that money from the bank, right? So the bank gives you 100. You give the 100 to the house owner, previous house owner, and now in exchange for that $100 with the bank, okay, this is clear, right? You give the $100 and you take the house. Over here, in exchange for the $100 to the bank, you give the bank your promise. You give them your word. Okay, that's what that is, all right? You give them your word that you're going to pay them $110 over the course of, let's say, 10 years. And they accept that deal. All right? Now, why would they want interest on top of that? Well, there's many reasons. A couple of them is because time has value, right? The time value of money. And the other one is, which is tied into that, is the opportunity cost. So they could be doing something with that $100 that they're not doing now because they've given it to you, right? So if I have $1 million, okay, let's take this out. If I have $1 million, I could be running a business with that. I could go travel. I could bet money on the casino. I have options, okay? I can buy vehicles. I can resell vehicles. I can use it to make music videos. I don't know. I have options. I can make more money with it, can spend it, take a vacation, collect, whatever. So I lose that opportunity if I give the money, this $1 million, to someone else for 10 years. I don't get to do any of that stuff, okay? So it's better to have the $1 million now and over than half the $1 million 10 years from now, especially since inflation and whatnot. But that's not part of the conversation here. So anyway, there's time value of money and opportunity cost, right? So the bank needs to be compensated for that, and that's how they make their money. It's not the only way how they make their money, okay? Because this promise now over here, this debt, okay, what they're gonna do is they're gonna go and flip it. Go ahead and flip it to an investor, like this owl right here. So this owl is actually gonna pay them $101. Let's say this is within the first year of the mortgage establishment origination, okay? So the owl pays $101, so a little bit more than the price that, or the money that the bank gave you, and in exchange receives the promise, right? AKA the bond, or in this case, mortgage-backed security, or the mortgage. Okay, when you take a bunch of these mortgages, it turns into a mortgage-backed security. All right, so that's the official term there, MBS. Anyway, so he takes this debt, and now the owl owns this mortgage. Okay, the bank here acts as a middleman. Now, wouldn't the penguin just borrow from the owl directly? Well, there are many reasons for that. The bank is much more liquid, right? So the bank can accommodate transactions much easier, and it serves almost as a marketplace here. Now, how does that relate to bonds, which is government debt? Well, government debt is the same deal. They spend money, all right? The governments, they spend money, and then they securitize that debt, and they push it off to investors. These investors can be anyone. Let's take a look. So here's the government building. It's spending money on pandas because pandas are deserving and they're cute, and so we need to spend money on pandas. More pandas. Okay, we don't need more pandas. That's too many pandas. All right, so they spend money on pandas, and in return, and they then push that debt off to investors. Now, you may be thinking, there's something wrong with this picture. I mean, they can't just give out $100 and keep dishing out 110 to investors, right? That equation doesn't work out very well. So how does the government fund the difference and pay for its employees and do all that crazy stuff? Well, the pandas get helped by sad pandas and investors who are now studying suicidal tendencies, and it looks like an anarchy book over there. So they're becoming a libertarian day by day, and they're thinking how to destroy the government. So sad pandas can be like the regular worker who's being squeezed out of their salaries with income taxes, sales taxes, etc. And investors, of course, they're paying capital gains taxes and estate taxes and all kinds of taxes as well. So maybe corporate tax, maybe they own businesses, corporate taxes, they have to pay healthcare taxes and whatnot. So basically these two groups, which is everyone besides these little pandas over here, chances are they're probably paying taxes as well. It's just that in different form, right? They may receive a benefit in like health benefit or unemployment check or stamp, or maybe they're part of the military or whatever else the government spends money on, and then they get it back, a portion back through their earnings if they work in the private market, right? And also these two guys, the sad pandas, regular worker, and the investors and business owners, entrepreneurs, etc. So in some cases, actually, if they're smart enough, they can avoid a lot of these taxes. So anyway, that's what a bond is. It's basically debt, just like the mortgage. It's a promise. The bond is a promise to repay the money back with interest. Okay, and it's a very strong promise because it's made by the government, and they have a very steady stream of income, so you know they're good for it. And if all else fails, they'll just print the money and give it to you, right? So it's not very likely that a bond will default, and therefore, especially an American bond, the USA, right? So it's considered very, very safe place to put your money and just collect a little bit of interest for that. Now that's exactly what BND is. All right, that's exactly what a BND is. Let's write it down here. BND. All right. BND is a collection of different types of duration bonds. Okay, so the longer the longer duration bonds pay out more yield. The shorter duration bonds pay less yield. And in fact, they're called something else. They're called either bills or notes or whatever. It's just a term. It's like a Wall Street term just to signify like what the duration of the debt is. Is it just a 6-week debt, or is it like 6-month debt or whatever, or a year or two or 10-year? Usually, I forget what the cutoff is, but maybe a year or longer, it's considered a bond. But that's not really important. All of these terms mean the same thing. They just mean debt, okay? Debt. So you're investing in debt. You're buying debt. You're buying somebody else's debt. Someone needs to purchase a house. You're buying that debt. So they pay you interest over time, okay? That's what it is. So in this case, it's in bonds. It's the government. So I think I've done enough to explain it. If you're confused about anything, what a bond is, let me know and I'll explain it further. Now this ties into the idea of this account that we made on day one. All right, if you haven't watched episode 1 and 2, I strongly suggest it so you can understand what the market is, and also what are the first steps that you need to do before you continue learning more and more about investing. Okay, so you want to start getting invested right away. So watch episode number 1 to know how to do that. Then watch 2, and now this is 3, and there will be a 4. Okay, in the series. So hopefully this helped you out a little bit, and you'll no longer feel as beginnerish as you first did on the first episode. Okay, that's it for now. Peace out.